Hi everyone, welcome to Cellular Insights. Today we'll be looking at the cell. So, cell is the structural and functional unit of the body. Without a cell, life doesn't exist. Let's get there. So, with the cell, our body progresses to become a complex body form. Let's see how. So, cell converts into a tissue converts into an organ converts into an organ system, and an organ system ultimately comes together and forms an organism. Let us look at an example for the following. So, for example, a cell. Let's look at a common cell that we have in our body. So, there are different types of cells. We'll name the cell. So, it's a normal cell. So, we'll put N in the bracket. Tissue. So, this forms squamous epithelium tissue. So this tissue forms the organ skin, right? The skin forms the organ system, that is the dermatological system, that is our skin system. So along with our skin, the skin and all the other organ systems like the digestive, cardiovascular, and neurological systems all come together and form a human body or any organism for that matter. This is a lovely example on how the cell is a structural and functional unit. So every cell has its own life. So old and weak cells in the body continuously die and are replaced by new cells. For example, let us look at the flow chart of the old people, the young people, and the middle-aged people. So when we look at infants, that is, if you look under the age 18 years, so the number of cells produced is greater than the number of cells dying. So hence they're in a stage of growth. And the growth here is rapid. Now, when we look at adults, infants, we can also say these are young adults, children. Young adults are also known as children. So young adults, children, teenagers, etc. So when we look at adults under the age 35 years, or it can be even more, up to 45 years, I could say. 35 to 45 years. So the number of cells produced is equal to the number of cells dying. So this equality refers to stability. This stability ensures body growth and it stabilizes the body. So there's no actual gain to the body, but it's not losing anything either. So when we look at seniors, what we also known as older adults that are above the age 50 or so, above 50. So when we look at those people, the number of cells produced are lesser than the number of cells dying. So these people are actually under the loss of cells, or their body is not requiring the amount. So that is why they become old and weak, some of them at least. So most organisms that are developed, they need cells, and the cell is the most fundamental and it's the most structural unit of life. So this is how you identify and distinguish why the cell is different from tissues, organs, organ systems, and organisms. So how was the discovery of the cell formed? So when you look at the discovery of the cell, it was first discovered by the use of a microscope. So how did the microscope come into picture? So the microscope came into picture by Antony van Leeuwenhoek, or you can also say Leeuwenhoek in the Commonwealth countries. So he lived from 1632 to 1723. He made microscopic observations as a hobby. He's said to have constructed 400 microscopes that he did with glass shards and biconvex lenses. So these microscopes posed a very serious impact to the future, and they helped in the growth and the study of biology in the future ages. So after the evolution of this microscope, this was known as the compound microscope, or you can say this was also known as the original microscope or the ancient microscope. So Robert Hooke found a piece of cork cells under the microscope and noticed that they were like monks that were trapped in a cell. So that's why I named them as cork cells. Later on, the compound microscope was discovered. The compound microscope was a really good invention that later paved way to the development of the electron microscope. This electron microscope enables us to see neurons, the Nissel's granules in neurons, and almost the impossible that we never imagined that we would be able to see. So the cell theory, so there were two people, that is Matthew Schladen and Theodore Schwann, who helped to formulate the cell theory. So the cell theory consists of three important points. So let's look at the points. So the cell is the smallest unit of structure of living things. So it's the smallest of all. So as I told you from this chart, that the cells further form tissue. So out of all this, the cell is the smallest. Next, the cell is the unit of function of all living things. So the cell becomes the unit of function. It's important that these cells help us form our organs, our organ systems that further pave way to the complete working of our body. So all cells arise from pre-existing cells. So this one is a really important point that we tend to forget. So all cells come from pre-existing cells. So how is this? So this happens through division. So division is a really important thing that occurs in all of our body. For example, neurons, some muscles, the skin cells undergo the most division, preferably. So what does the cell theory mean? So when you look at the cell theory, it has the four major points that you need to remember. So structural unit, this as mentioned in the definition or the explanation, the cell is the structural unit, and the cell is the one that further develops into tissues, organs, and organ systems. The cell is the functional unit. So all the functional activities that occur in the body is ultimately responsible from the cell. So cell is the main important component which helps all these functional activities become possible, like digestion, circulation, breathing. So yeah, cells die and are replaced. So as I told you about this flow chart, the cells dying are replaced. For infants and adults, seniors, that is older adults, they are replaced, but it's most rapid in infants and growth increases. So most life starts as a single cell. So whenever you're in the womb, or whenever a zygote is introduced, or there's a fertilization of both the cells, you start as a single cell. After fertilization, you become a single cell. The single cell rapidly divides and forms limbs and arms in the womb of the mother, and ultimately becomes a fetus which grows on in further stages. But how do you feel, or how do you get to know that the same small fetus is the one which later grows into a large human? So that is because of division of cells. The pre-existing cells divide and make new cells. The cells and how many? So there are three types of cell organisms. So the first one is our single-celled organisms. There are certain single-celled organisms, and there are many as well. They are located in small plants. That is, small plants are also known as lower order in the five kingdom classification. So for example, you have bacteria, which are single cell. We have yeast, and we have amoeba. So amoeba and yeast are irregularly shaped, while bacteria is a flagellum and might or may not be irregularly shaped. So next is multicell. So multi-cells, as it said from the word, has numerous cells. So for example, you have plants of higher order, and humans, they have a lot of cells. So that is why the word multi. Next we have is few celled. So they contain very few cells. So this is in higher order or lower order plants, but this is mostly present in plants. So here we have Spirogyra. This is the main example. So cells, how small? There are a few cells that are really small. The smallest is the bacteria, that is 0.3 to 5 micrometer red blood cells in human body. Longest is the nerve cell that might reach up to 1 meter. And the largest cells are the bird cells, that is the ostrich eggs. That is the largest of the living cells till date. So the smallness of cells, so you may think that larger the cell, greater the efficiency. I don't think that this is true, and this is completely a wrong notion. So what I would say, or what scientists also say, that smaller the cells, greater the efficiency. So I'd say that this cell has more efficiency compared to this one. So this one has a greater efficiency. So in biology, there's also a terminology where you need to know what the symbols mean. So let's look at that. So here we have greater than, less than, equal to. Just point this arrowhead to the side which is greater than. For example, you have 1 and 2. 2 is greater than 1. So face the crocodile mouth towards 2. And if 2 is equal to 2, so use the equal to sign. And if 2 is here and 1 is here, just face it towards like that. That's how you distinguish in biology. So the structure of the cell, so there are two types of cells we have. That is, we have animal cell, and then we have plant cell. So an animal cell is most commonly found in animals and humans. So animal cell is a species of higher order. So let me just illustrate the animal cell. So the illustrations have to be in pencil whenever you're drawing it. Plus animal cells have to be drawn really precisely, right? We'll do the labeling later. So first we'll draw the nucleus. After the cell wall, draw the nucleus, and then you draw the nucleolus, chromatin fiber. Next you have the vacuole. Next you have the mitochondria. Under it you draw crevices like this. This is known as cristae. Next you have the Golgi apparatus. Golgi apparatus is also a really important organ. Next you have the endoplasmic reticulum. It's the rough because it's dotted with ribosomes. And next we have the cytoplasm. This part is the cytoplasm, which I'll color in a different color. Just wait a minute. Which I'll color with this. So this is the cytoplasm that's present. It doesn't go out of the cell, so just pardon me. I'm just gonna erase that. Right, this is the cytoplasm. So this is the animal cell. So this, let me show you with my compass. So this is the Golgi apparatus. These are the important things that you need to learn. This is the mitochondria. This is the nucleus. So the nucleus has different parts. This is known as the nuclear envelope. This is known as the nucleolus. And this is known as the chromatin fibers, which are located outside the nucleus and also known as DNA. So this is endoplasmic reticulum. So endoplasmic reticulum has two types. So it is smooth if ribosomes are absent, and it is rough if ribosomes are present. This is a vacuole. Okay, so and then let's distinguish between cytoplasm and protoplasm. So this part where this is protoplasm, and this part is known as cytoplasm. Protoplasm is the part in which the cell organelles are located, and it's present distinguishedly between them. And here is the cell wall and cell membrane. So if you look at it at that way, the animal cell does not have a cell wall, but in our language we do refer to this wall this wall present as the cell wall and the cell membrane. So if you enjoyed part 1 of my cell series, where I taught you about all the basics of the cells from the life cycle to the number of cells present, do give a subscribe to the Cellular Inside Cells, and then I will produce a part 2 of it.